Okay, so this is the last video in this series about the submarine and shark attack. And the question here is, do sharks attack boats? And the answer is no. Sharks don't. Great white sharks, I'm talking about great white sharks, don't attack boats. Okay, but the reason I'm discussing this is because a lot of people have this misconception through movies and through documentaries that great white sharks like to attack boats and bite boats. Yes, they mouth boats. They investigate boats. They're extremely curious animals. They'll come and mouth the dive platform. They'll mouth the engines. They'll go along the keel of a boat and mouth it. They'll come up and bump a boat. And you watch the documentary, and the big shark comes up and pumps the motors, or somebody pulls in a bait, and you don't see that the bait's been pulled out the water, and the shark chases the bait, and you don't see the bait because you just see the shark banging into the boat, and everybody's screaming because it's Hollywood stuff. It's just rubbish, okay? And it's like, oh my God, we just got attacked. The shark just attacked the boat. And this is what you see in documentaries, and most people believe this shit. And it's rubbish. It's not true. There have been reports and certain cases where sharks have holed boats. The submarine holed Donnie Schoeman's boat, but Donnie Schoeman was harassing the shark. Donnie Schoeman was trying to, he was attacking the shark, and the shark was defending itself. So, can you really say that's an attack on a boat? I don't know. Great white sharks have a habit of coming up and taking chunks out of surf skis, which is quite an interesting point. I'm going to talk about that in behavior, actually. But they do. They actually come up and they attack surf skis. But a surf ski is not a boat. I'm talking about boats. My opinion is that great white sharks do not attack boats. There's no reason for them. They are to do this. They are bright animals. They're clever. They know that the boat is an inanimate object. However, very often there's a lot of chumming. I'm talking about normal boats, fishing boats. So there's a 15, 16, 18 foot skiff out there, and you got a bunch of fishermen, and they're pulling fish off the reef, and the fish are bleeding on the deck of the boat, and the blood runs into the water, and they're chopping up sardines, and they're throwing in the water to chum the fish up, and a shark will come along, and it gets confused because its senses are telling it that there's something to eat here, but it doesn't see anything substantial, and it might come up and take a bite at the boat. But it's not attacking the boat, it's just confused. The shark doesn't know what's going on, so it gets confused, come and nibble at the engines or bite at the hull, and then realize, okay, so I can smell the fish, but that is not what it is. And then they'll back off, and they'll cruise around a few times. And if you're a commercial fisherman, you'll probably take your gaff and try and hit the shark because you don't want the shark taking fish off your lines. But now, this is where it gets interesting. I've got a theory that I'm not talking about sharks attacking boats. I've got a theory that sharks will often bump boats, and there's a reason for it. And not all great white sharks, because as I've explained, and I'll be explaining this a lot in behavior, great white sharks all have different personalities, so they behave very differently. Some are very cautious, others are shy, others are bold, others are what you could say aggressive, or if I don't know, that's not the right word, but imagine aggressive. Others are nervously aggressive, like a nervously aggressive dog. So you got all these different behaviors in the species, but most of them are pretty chilled out and calm, very curious and very cautious. But I think that certain animals, when they get to a certain size, they do learn. These animals are smart, they learn. And the submarine used to have this habit. We were involved in hunting a submarine for a year or whatever it was. So we spoke to a lot of people, there was a lot of discussions. I listened to my father chat to other shark fishermen in the bay, and I heard Uncle Arthur tell a lot of stories. And a lot of the stories was that the submarine had a habit of coming up and bumping boats. Just suddenly coming up from the depths and bumping a boat and scaring the bejesus out of the poor occupants. And you probably find that most of the time it wasn't even a submarine. People just assumed it was a submarine because they're not used to great white sharks. So a 4.5 meter great white shark comes up and you're on a 16-foot boat, it's going to look like a submarine. So my theory is that in those days the fishing was pretty good, and we had this happen to us where we'd be on a reef and we're fishing, and suddenly, boop, your rod tips like this, and you pull it up, and the line's off, and your fish is gone. And then my father, he hooks a fish, and he starts reading up, and doof, and then you know there's a great white shark under the boat. You just know that there's a big shark down there. So then my dad says, lines up, and everybody pulls their lines up, and minute later, 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, suddenly, boom, a shark comes up to the surface and bumps the boat, or swims around the boat, or mouths the engines. And my theory is that these sharks become accustomed to associating the shape of a boat on the surface with easy pickings. They don't know what it is. They don't know it's a boat. But when these things are floating on the surface, the sharks associated with food coming up off the reef. So they just cruise around. They don't have to chase anything. You hook the fish, you start reeling the fish up, and the shark just goes boom, and takes the fish away. And next person hooks a fish, and the shark just swims up and takes the fish away. And then you stop fishing. You bring your lines up and you stop fishing because now you're wasting your time because the shark's going to take all the fish. And the shark cruises around, and it starts thinking, what's happening? I just ate 2 or 3 fish and it's all gone. And it goes up to the thing on the surface, which is the boat, and bumps the boat. Basically like knocking on the door and saying, hello, what's happening down here? Where's the food? Where's the fish? And it's just an association. It's not a shark attacking the boat. So that is my theory. I think it holds a lot of water from my experience working with great white sharks. But to answer the question, do sharks attack boats? No, they don't attack boats. I've been working with great white sharks since 1990 professionally. I was involved with hunting great white sharks when I was only 12 years old, 13 years old. I've worked with thousands of great white sharks, individuals in boats that are 40 feet long, boats that are 20 feet long, boats that are 26 feet long, different shape boats. Been on the water for thousands of hours working with great white sharks, and we have never had our boat attacked, except for the time the submarine tried to sink us, and you couldn't blame the animal because the animal was just trying to survive and protect itself. So that's the end of shark attack. That's the end of the submarine story. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you learned a great deal. And like I say, now it's going to be biology and complex behavior, and then White Shark Chronicles, which is going to be the most exciting. No, I don't. I'm so excited to do it because there's so many stories that I have to tell. I don't even know where to start. But anyway, hopefully I'll see you on those 2 tiers. Thanks so much.